Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download at www.audibletrial.com/TNRL. Over 100,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Do it, people. Go do it.
Jesus got out here.
I thought I was a good Christian.
Jesus died on a cross. I go to church every Sunday. Jesus got out here. Then I read this. It says Jesus died on a cross for a rotten hooker.
I thought I was a good Christian.
I go to church every Sunday.
I thought I was a good Christian.
I go to church every Sunday. I'm a very religious person.
I thought I was a good Christian.
The very lie the serpent told to Eve in the Garden of Eden. Garden of Eden. Garden of Eden. The gospel of Jesus Christ spreads confusion and promotes lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ spreads confusion and promotes lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ spreads confusion and promotes lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ spreads confusion and promotes lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ spreads confusion and promotes.
Hey everybody, it is Monday, April 30th, 2012, This Non-Religious Life. I'm your host, Ken. With me all the way across the country, we have Bob.
Bearded guy checking in.
And Jason.
I'm so embarrassed.
You're supposed to be silently embarrassed.
Oh, wait. Let's try that again.
I thought your job was to be the silent embarrassed guy. Silent guy. We have a few mind-numbingly I don't know how to describe them. The first one is just ironic, and it's we were passing this around last week before the show, and this is a big protest outside of Citi Field, where some ultra-Orthodox Jewish rabbis are protesting the internet.
And the evils of the internet.
The evils of the internet. This is
But wait. I found out about this on the internet.
Right.
Yeah, that's the ironic part, is that the group doing it put their rally announcement up on the internet.
Yeah, I don't know how they rationalize that one away. And you know the level of bizarre it just goes on from there, because I saw that there was a women's Jewish group and they were upset about this internet protest, and not because this was stupid and silly, but because it was men only, and they felt that women should be educated about the evils of the internet as well.
Oh my god!
But
It's too early for
they,
that. Fuck my life.
on top of that, you pointed out the picture that's on their website on the.
Yeah, so the website that the Jewish League that is promoting the anti-internet rally it says Citi Field, but they keep saying also Shea Stadium, and on their website they have pictures of Shea Stadium. Shea Stadium was demolished in 2009. They're not going to be getting very far. I wonder who's going to show up at Shea Stadium.
I don't know, but if they looked it up and did a quick Google, they would probably figure that out. But I just don't understand. Okay, I understand the fact that they're saying that the internet is evil. I can see where they may come from that, saying, oh, wait, there's a lot of bad things on the internet, just like there's a lot of bad things in the world. But they're also against technology, devices.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, they're like neo-Luddites, They want to destroy technology and bring us back into a
But are they
sort of
going to use the
backward
Jumbotron when they're out there giving? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the jokes, was that I guess the guys using the Jumbotron are going to get the day off.
Yeah.
This is it reminds me of, if you've ever seen the picture of the woman holding the sign that says "Destroy the computer," a homosexual invention by Alan Turing. Who cares if he cracked the German Enigma code and won World War II? It's a homo's devil machine. It's like, it's this sign on a piece of wood, but it is definitely not handmade.
Yeah.
this was printed.
Wait a minute. So that devil machine that I bought that's in the other room is not the real devil machine?
Yeah.
No.
I saw a guy who was, I guess he was on CNN or something, and he was a Muslim cleric, and he was ranting about the evils of technology and how all of that was, the Quran was all opposed to technology, and then he answered his goddamn cell phone.
Yeah.
Couldn't believe it.
This is just the ridiculous silliness of, they're against progress is what they're against. Like they don't like that we're no longer stuck in a Bronze Age society to match their Bronze Age morality.
But are they really against progress? I mean, what's the real goal on this? I mean, yeah, sure, it's a media blitz, and we can laugh and make fun, but seriously, they honestly deeply believe in something that they're spending over $1.5 million to have the largest mass gathering of Jewish Orthodox in one location in the United States, and so there's got to be something there more than what we're just kind of poking a stick at and laughing at, because it on face value it does sound silly. You're protesting the internet and you're protesting technology
by using the internet.
But seriously, there has to be something more to it. What is it?
Well, I mean, this is no different than what the Hutterites and the Mennonites and not less the Mennonites, but the Amish have done. The Amish in particular reject all technology past whatever it was when they set up.
Yeah, but they don't rent $1.5 million worth of money to rent a stadium to protest it. They live their lives by example and by their own values. It's not like they're spending all this money to protest internet and production and innovation.
Oh yeah, I mean, they're incredibly insular. They stick to themselves mostly. But I do believe they actually were fairly active when they first started, trying to convince people that human progress needed to be stopped. They were right where they needed to be. Everything beyond that was superfluous.
I think I look at it. I know maybe I'm just a cynic about it, but I look at it in a more cynical light. In that, if you want to control people, you control the flow of information, and that's what the internet is. The internet is free information for everybody all the time, and sure, there are problems and there's a price to be paid for it, but that's what it is. It is free information. If you want to control people, you control the flow of information.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. During the Dark Ages, it's often brought up that it was the monasteries and the churches that maintained literacy. But the point missed there is that they made sure it stayed that way. They made sure that it was only from the pulpit that people were literate.
I mean, yeah, look at even today, look at like fundamentalist Muslims where they don't want to teach women to read and write. Because if you do that, then she gets more information. I read some statistic, and I don't even know if it's true, but they're making the case that if you read one Wall Street Journal today, you would have had more information than somebody in the Middle Ages would have had their entire lives.
Oh yeah, absolutely. In England, the first few copies of the Bible, mind you, in English. It was punishable as a heresy, i.e., you got burned to death for it. The printing press, that was outlawed.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. We can joke about it, and it's silly that they're protesting the internet on the internet. But at the end of the day, I'm like, this is all about controlling people's thoughts and minds. And and that may be a little sinister. That might be a more sinister take on it than it needs to be. But that's what it means to me.
So you're saying the same thing that you said about what makes Christians atheists is, knowledge. Once they learn more about it, that the knowledge to know the universe will make you an atheist faster than anything else. So you're saying that they would their interest is to block free-flowing knowledge so they can control and keep people into this whatever lifestyle that they've chosen for themselves.
Yes. In a nutshell.
Yeah, I agree with Bob on this. There was a study that just came out. It was in the LA Times here that said, what was it? Critical thinking can undermine religious belief.
Yeah.
And, these people, no doubt, I mean, it is funny that they're protesting the internet, using the internet. But what they're probably pissed off about, bear in mind, these are ultra-Orthodox Jews. They're very, very highly religious. And they no doubt see the secularization of society, and society is getting more secular. If you watch the level of irreligious over the past few years in polls, it's increased from 8 to 16% in like 20 years,
Something like that. Yeah. There's a part of me where you think about the Amish and this pastoral life that they have, and I saw Witness. It looks great, but at the end of the day, I think it was who was it that said that life in a state of nature is ugly, brutish, and short?
Thomas Hobbes.
It was Hobbes.
It was Hobbes.
And I think that that's absolutely true. Yeah, sure, progress comes with its own price, but at the same time, all the problems that it creates, it also solves.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, I agree. What is progress other than trying to fight your way out of the pit that we, started in?
Or dug for ourselves.
Yeah. Well, no, I agree. Like right now we're in a. We have our science and technology has created, anthropomorphic climate change, and when we're trying to figure out how to deal with that, but you're not gonna fix it by going, all right, everybody stop driving cars, because that's not gonna happen. So we have to find another way.
Well, it's funny because I'm researching for the book that I'm writing on, and I'm reading about the Reformation in the 18th, 19th century, where how. There's like 3 different types of people. There's people who believe that the best direction for the human race is to back out of society and live off the land, and then there's the other ones who believe that they should build communities and unions, and then there's the other. There's. I just think it's funny is like we have not changed, even with technology and everything. We are still in the same places we were when this country was founded, where there's still the same battles, still the same arguments. It's just the only thing that's changed is the way that we get those battles out there. It's like now, instead of having to put somebody on a horse with the bag to carry a message, it went from the newspapers, and then it went to and now we sit here in front of 3-inch cameras that are high definition and send the message. I think that's the only thing that changes is the medium, and not the actual problems of what the humans can perceive.
On one hand, I agree with that. I do, and I think you're right. But then I think, at the other hand, a lot has changed in that we live a lot longer. And,
Well, yeah.
and instead of spending the 8 hours on a horse to take that message somewhere, we do it instantly. And so now we all have so much more leisure time to do those things. We have more time to hash those battles out and think about it. We can do so much more with our lives and in our day, and those days are so much longer than what they had 200 years ago.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge difference, and it's not to be discounted. You can't just overlook that.
Well, I wasn't overlooking. I was just saying that on face value, it's not much has changed in the human development of the way we perceive the world.
Agreed, but now we have the free time. And
we have a longer time to perceive,
and more numerous days to have those battles.
Yeah.
I guess.
It's odd. But I'm just glad Thursday's coming because we can all pray about it.
Oh man.
Because if you don't know, Thursday is the National Day of Prayer. And I got a phone call this morning saying that churches in Texas and people are making a big issue out of it, and a big issue is in terms of that they support it, and there's going to be
awesome. They should
rallies.
absolutely have a day of prayer. First Presbyterian Church in Lubbock, Texas should absolutely have a day of prayer. What it shouldn't be is National Day of Prayer.
Yeah.
It should be international, is what you're saying.
It can even be a day organized across the nation. Cool, but the nod it gets from politicians is gross.
Yeah, I agreed. Gross. Gross. That is a gross and a gross violation of the Establishment Clause.
And me calling it gross is as honest as I can be, because today is National Honesty Day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes my skin crawl just to think that the people in power, I don't believe that they all necessarily buy it. They just pander.
Well, I agree. It is pandering.
The first Thursday of May is supposed to be the National Day of Prayer, and I'm doing a quick wiki on it. And it was designated by the U.S. Congress when people are asked to turn to God, and this is a quote, to pray in prayer and meditation. Each year, the president signs a proclamation encouraging all Americans to pray on this day. So
and the government has no business endorsing a prayer event or enticing people to pray.
This was enacted in 1952.
Yep. Yeah, right in the fucking middle of the Red Scare,
right.
Just like everything else that, how religion crept into our government. It all happened, or most of it happened during the 1950s when we wanted to separate ourselves from, those godless commies. We took Judeo-Christian institutions and sort of like molded them into what American society should look like, and it was never that way before. There was no God on the bills. There was no God of the Pledge of Allegiance. There was no National Day of Prayer.
Well, in April 2011, Freedom from Religion Foundation challenged it, and it was unanimously dismissed by the federal appellate court.
FRF.
Yeah.
FFRF has been fighting National Day of Prayer for a while now, and they don't seem to be making much headway. Although they've had a lot of wins with removing 10 Commandments from state courts and stuff in schools, but the National Day of Prayer seems to be like the one they can't beat. And I think it's
because the courts have refused to even see it. They voted unanimously just to dismiss it and not even address it.
Well, and the reason the reason the courts do that is they say there's a and they're trying to get around this. They're trying. It's a lot of legal wrangling, but the court says well, you're not harmed by this National Day of Prayer, therefore you have no case. Huh? So that may that may or may not be. It's certainly unsatisfactory, but that may have to be the case with the legal system as it is now. And so there could be changes where it would be regarded as doing harm, but who knows? But
would it be harm, say I don't know if there's a National Atheist Day or whatever. There may be, for all I know.
But it's all right. But it's not endorsed by the government.
But I'm just saying, if we can get it endorsed by the government, I say if we, not that I'm doing anything about it, but I'm just saying hypothetically, say if there is a National Atheist Day, and I don't know what the call of action would be, but say if there was and applied for it and it was shot down, and the president wouldn't sign every day for people to call on action, could that be challenged, saying that they're showing bias because they have a National Day of Prayer?
I don't know. Maybe you could do that. How about we have National Spaghetti Dinner Day, and we can all worship the flying spaghetti monster,
Yeah.
right? Let's do that.
It's funny because we only have one atheist in the Senate, at least one open one, and he couldn't even get Darwin's birthday recognized, let alone an openly National Atheist Day.
I don't have problem with churches engaging in prayer. Awesome, they should do that. They should be allowed to do that.
That's
What they do.
But it's when they get an endorsement from the United States government to not only pray, but to entreat me to do the same.
Yeah.
So
That's why it's gross.
So there would be an issue. It would become an issue, say, since it's endorsed by the government, and a teacher in a class in a public school said today is National Day of Prayer, so we are going to take a moment to honor this national day.
I'd love to see that happen.
Would that be protected?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, and I agree. I'd love to see it happen because I'd love to see where the courts fall on it.
Yeah.
Maybe that would be how you get it in front of the Supreme Court.
I don't know.
That would be interesting.
Ken, go be a teacher.
Yeah. I'll get right on that.
Class, today we're going to have prayer only to stir up some shit.
Pray that we succeed.
I'm gonna pray every day in class, hoping somebody tells me no.
We have something that's I think is going to take a little while to get into. So why don't we talk about our sponsor really quick?
Good call.
Yeah. So I thought what we would do today is did you find this link, Jason, or the 15 questions for evolutionists?
Yeah, we're going to do that after our sponsor.
Well, that's why
it ties into the sponsor.
No, I know.
That's why we did you find the link or okay. So I thought it would be fun to do would be there's a website. It's creation.com and or .org is it? And they have a big thing about 15 questions for evolutionists, and we're gonna try and look at them one by one, but our relevant book choice for the week is The Blind Watchmaker by Richard Dawkins, which you can download free at audibletrial.com/TNRL. And in The Blind Watchmaker, Dawkins he doesn't just lay out the case for evolution, he lays out the case for the speciation and variation in species, a world without design. That's what he's advocating, and I think he makes a very strong case for it.
Yeah.
So go check out that.
Well,
book.
it is what he does.
Yeah, and then so the title of the book comes from a lot of intelligent design arguments come from if you were to, and I think this was there was a famous philosopher that made this argument where he said if you dig up a watch in the sand, the complexity of the watch implies a designer, like somebody made that watch, and so they say if you look at the complexity of life, that implies a designer. And so Dawkins sort of takes that and turns it on its head and says, well, fine, if there's a watchmaker, then he's blind.
It was William Paley, by the way.
Okay. Which that's I think.
But yeah, it's go.
I was just going to say that I think that the watchmaker analogy is a logical fallacy in and of itself. I just haven't decided which one yet.
It's a mash of a few. And let me pull up my little logical fallacy infographic.
Yeah.
It's definitely special pleading. It's definitely
I think maybe it's I don't want to say a lot of them. The easiest one is the the argument from personal incredulity, like I can't see any
Incredulity,
other
yeah.
way for this watch to have been here, so therefore it must be designed.
Yeah, it's a false dichotomy too. And of course it's a straw man.
Yeah, okay, straw man.
You know,
There
so
you go.
it's a slew of them. It's a nice logical fallacy cocktail, if you will.
Let's get drunk.
Yeah, so what I thought would be
Get
fun to
drunk
do
on
would be
dumb.
to read their 15 questions. We'll go through them one at a time and see how many. One we'll maybe hope to provide answers for them, and then talk about why that they're which logical fallacies they have illustrated, and we should definitely put the logical fallacy chart in the show notes because I think that's fun.
Yeah, I will. At first, I want to preface this whole thing is when we were passing this around, Jason passed me a link to one of their sites. It was defining an atheist, and it made me feel dumb by the time I was done reading it. Like I feel like I got stupider as I read it. And one of the things they did is they tried to do this etymology of words. And they broke down atheist as atheos, which is right. It's Greek. It means no God. They tried to twist around saying, oh, this just means you don't believe in a God. It doesn't mean there is no God. Of which I say, yes, of course. That's what it means. An atheist is one who doesn't believe in God. Just because a word exists doesn't mean the premise is automatically true. But then they tried to break down a couple other words, and one of them was amusement. And they tried to say it meant, it didn't mean that there was no musing ever. It meant that there was no musing at that time or something like that. It was so dumb because amusement doesn't come from Greek.
Yeah.
It's a French word originally, amuser. It means a or a means to to or at, and then muse means to ponder. Usually, it used to mean to beguile someone, to trick someone, to take their ponderings away from what they were thinking about and sort of distract them. But hey, by the time I was done reading it, I wanted to smash my head through my wall.
I see them make this mistake. Like a lot of people that are sort of on the attack for atheism and evolution in general, they really don't have the facts on their side. And so what they have to do is they have to be almost disingenuous in their arguments.
I think almost is giving them some credit. I feel like I don't even know who could have written this. You have the internet in front of you, writing a website. You could do basic checks. Google etymology amusement. Etymology.com will come up with the etymology of amusement.
You can't because the internet's evil.
Yeah,
right.
We've shown that already. Can't be trusted.
Oh, God.
Yeah,
All
I know.
right.
Dude, 2 o'clock in the morning, you're furiously typing on your computer. Someone on the internet is wrong.
Yeah.
I know it's so like I get so frustrated about it. I'm just like and then I have to walk away. I can't. And then I show up here on Mondays and start ranting about it.
Yeah.
And I always start crying.
Yeah.
All right, so what's the first
Do you
step?
watch The Office,
Yes.
Bob? Do you remember when Michael Scott's talking about Wikipedia? And he says, the best thing about Wikipedia is anyone can put anything on there, so you know you're getting the best possible information.
Yeah. Right.
All right, so let's tackle these 15 questions for evolutionists. I am not scientifically illiterate, but I'm glad that we have Bob, this is a little more his forte than mine.
All right. Well, so the very first question is, they say, how did life originate? And they say a minimal cell needs several hundred proteins. Even if every atom in the universe were an experiment with all the current amino acids present for every possible molecular vibration in the supposed evolutionary age of the universe, not even one average-sized functional protein would form. So, how did life with hundreds of proteins originate just by chemistry without intelligent design? Well,
how, Bob?
It's funny. I don't have an answer to that per se. However, neither does evolution. Evolution speaks nothing about the creation of life.
Yeah.
It's just evolution just sort of takes over the whole idea of evolution takes over once life has started. Once you have life, then evolution can do a pretty good job of explaining most everything. But how life actually started, that's kind of a mystery. However,
yeah, this is definitely one of those common conflations that the anti-evolution brigade will bring about. They sort of conflate evolution, which speaks of the diversity of life, with abiogenesis,
yes,
which is the origin of life. And actually, scientists have a pretty good idea about abiogenesis. Original cells didn't have cell walls. They were literally just pieces of very simple RNA, which is chemically self-replicating.
Right, RNA is, and we'll get to that too, but because they asked that question. But there is a lot of thought going on in the field of abiogenesis, which is not evolution, but works to explain the origins of life. And there's the famous Miller-Urey experiment, where they have the, in a bottle they use their best guess of the primordial soup, what atmospheric conditions were like, and then they shocked it a whole bunch of times to simulate maybe lightning was interacting with it, and then boom, 20 amino acids.
Yeah. I believe they've actually replicated in the lab using what they think the primordial world was like, 2 of the 4 nucleotides.
Yeah, and I'm not a chemist, and I don't understand all the chemistry behind it. But what they did is they took inorganic matter and made, without any designer, without anything but the application of energy. And that energy, I read, was they used electrical shocks. And then at one time, one guy, he did it where they were thinking that it was the heat energy applied from the volcanic earth. And so they were blowing steam into it to simulate, a volcanic eruption. They were trying to, think of different ways that energy could be applied to the system. But anyway, at the end of the day, from inorganic beginnings, they make organic compounds. So there you go. There's a piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. And I think the one of the ones here is the even if every atom in the universe were an experiment with all the correct amino acids present for every possible molecular vibration, I don't know what that means, in the supposed evolutionary age of the universe, not even one average-sized functional protein would form, which is absolute nonsense. I mean, how could you even come up with that premise? Like, the statistics of that, like, I don't know. Like, you're dealing with a law of large numbers, which is always, in the end, 1. You know? They either seriously doubt the size of the universe.
Well, I liked how they say the supposed evolutionary age of the universe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which means they doubt the age of the universe, too. But this is, I don't know, what fallacy would you call this? I would say it's probably...
I think a lot of these are going to fall into the personal incredulity.
Incredulity, yeah.
We should have made this into a game show.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like personal incredulity. And what's the one where they're sort of conflating two things? Like they're criticizing evolution. Oh, there's a logical fallacy for that.
Yeah. It maybe special pleading. Yeah, I think it's special pleading. It's definitely a straw man, that's for sure. A lot of them are going to be straw man fallacies too.
Can I throw a curveball on this real quick? On their main page of where you're getting this from, there's a new article titled "Does inbreeding always decrease genetic variety. So, say that right. Does inbreeding always decrease genetic variety?
Yes and no.
Well, that's just their top.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna worry too much about them trying to get into the specifics. I mean, they're obviously going to try and say that inbreeding isn't that terrible because I mean this is.
Well, they're just saying it's not that terrible because that's the only way they can continue their. Oh, I'm sorry, just kidding.
Yeah, well, they have to believe that inbreeding happened at least twice. Adam and Eve, and then Noah. You know, like. You know, it was Noah and his 3 sons and their wives, like, repopulated the entire planet.
No inbreeding at all.
No inbreeding. No inbreeding.
Yeah, see that even that idea just skeeves me out a little bit.
Yeah.
Whatever, we're brothers. It's all right. All right, so what's 2?
Just keep it in the family. Okay.
Yeah.
Next one, Bob.
All right, so their next question is how did DNA code originate? And they say, what other coding system has existed without intelligent design? How did the DNA coding system arise without it being created? Well, we talked about that a little, and actually this is a tough question, but if, as I understand it, the prevailing thought is that RNA was the precursor to DNA. And you know, all you have to imagine is that one molecule makes a copy of itself once, like an imperfect copy, and then that imperfect copy makes more imperfect copies of itself, and so on and so on and so on.
Yeah, I think the basic argument against this point is that it's the misunderstanding of what DNA is. It's not a code. It's not a language. It's not information. It's chemistry. You know, certain chemical compounds do certain things. You know, biology is nothing more than the application of organic chemistry.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a happy accident
because that's what it does. That's how it works.
Yeah, but I mean, the replication process itself, like information gets carried along with that. But I agree with you. At the end of the day, it's still chemistry.
Yeah, I would even say like information is very. It's hard to call it information.
All right, information in the
only
loose
information
sense
because
of the
we
term.
perceive it that way. You know, the information that it carries, you know, big air quotes there, is only information in so much that we perceive what it does and then call it information.
Agreed.
You know, it's not the same as me writing down a letter and passing it to you.
Passing me a note in biology class?
Yeah, it's more akin to, you know, an athlete runs a lap and jumps a bunch of hurdles. I wouldn't call those all those hurdles information. I would just say that's what it's doing.
Yeah, that I think that's another I think it's another fallacy of personal incredulity where a person and you know, I promise you, if I don't have an idea about how DNA got started, there's somebody who does.
Yeah.
And just because I don't know what it is or don't have a clear idea of what it is, that doesn't mean it's not out there. Somebody is out there thinking about it. And just because you don't understand it doesn't mean it can't have happened.
Well, their rebuttal to that, and I'm looking at their website, says, but if science has not yet advanced, then how could they possibly know what can be the answer in the future? And then it goes on talking about, you know, linking it to the Bible. He says if there's more questions about evolution were answered by scientific advance, the skeptics may point out, but exactly the opposite has been true in the past. The more biological knowledge expands, the more problems evolution has. For example, Darwin thought that a cell was just a blob of goo. Now we know that it's a miniature city with advanced nanotechnology, including machines and factories. Quote from their website.
Well,
which is a really cool image. but it's not an accurate. I mean, that's the thing with science. Science is really, really fucking hard, okay? And the only way most lay people can understand it is through analogy. And then people who don't really understand the concept of analogy, like biblical inerrantists, will then take that analogy as being the actual explanation of how things work.
And I think the logical fallacy that they commit most is maybe the appeal to authority, because they consider the Bible as the authority when it has nothing to say about biology at all. So
yeah, it has. I mean, it does, but let's see. Okay, 1 Kings 6:2. This should undermine the scientific credibility of the Bible right here. And the house which King Solomon built for the Lord, the length thereof was 80 cubits, and the breadth was 20 cubits, and the height thereof 30 cubits. Wait. No, this is the wrong one.
Damn it.
I'm trying to find it.
is that the one?
It's about the house. It's about the temple that Solomon builds, where it defines the. No, it's 723. Essentially, it's describing the columns and the size of them. But when it describes them, if you were to take those and bring those back, it would make pi 3.
Right, yeah, right.
Three.
The relationship of the circumference to the diameter was 3.
Yeah, it's first.
Which
Kings
that's not true.
7:20. No, yeah.
You can say it was about 3.
Yeah, close. 3.141529654. 10 digits of pi.
Thereabouts.
I only know the digits.
So
Yeah.
how is that different from what they just said on their website? They're saying that Darwin said, a cell was a blob of goo, and y'all just said, well, the Bible says that pi is 3.
I don't think Darwin ever said that the cell was a blob of goo, and he may have been speaking metaphorically, even if he did. But he understood that the cell had components to it, and that there was he understood that there was complexity in the cell itself, and just because Darwin misunderstood the inner workings of a cell doesn't mean that he's not right, because he didn't speak to the inner workings of the cell. He was speaking about the mechanism of evolution. He was speaking about what drives diversity.
Yeah, absolutely. Plus, I mean, what they like to do is they like to take Darwin and put him up and say, like, look at this. This is Darwin. This is what he said. This is some sort of unchanging idea that hasn't advanced in the past 150 some odd years. Whereas that's not true. Darwin's basic premises were right. The mechanisms that drove them, the details have all come into a clearer focus. When he was looking at it and sort of writing it out, he had a blurry idea. And though he might have been initially wrong on some points, it's only because he couldn't see in focus the particular ideas. His basic idea is still right.
Yeah,
And,
right. And there's even things that he had wrong because everybody had it wrong at the time. And when Darwin wrote Origin of a Species, genetics hadn't been discovered yet, or at least Mendel was working on it. And so that mechanism of inheritance, nobody knew what that was. At that time, the method of inheritance was thought to be a blending of traits. If a tall person and a short person had a baby, then that person would be of medium height. Whereas we know now that they're either tall or they're short. Generally, there's other factors that are involved. But the implication was the traits of the mother and the father were blended into some moderate trait in the offspring. And that's not true. Inheritance is an all or nothing game.
Yeah. The really sad thing about Mendel is Mendel actually took his findings and actually wrote them down and mailed them to Darwin. But Darwin, not speaking German, couldn't read it and actually died before it was translated for him.
Mm. Yeah, that's. I mean, think about that. What would Darwin have done? Like, and I don't want to put words in Darwin's mouth or do that thing like, well, Darwin didn't say it, but he should have. But think about what Darwin would have said had he known about this mechanism of inheritance. A lot would have been clear to him.
Yeah.
So and so even though he didn't understand several facets of biology, it doesn't mean that his big idea, his big premise is wrong when in fact it's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Oh, these guys make me so mad.
Let's jump to the next one.
The next one is how could errors create the 3 billion letters of DNA information to change a microbe into a microbiologist? And I think Dawkins has a lot to say about this. It's not that, one of the design arguments is like they have this, imagine a tornado blows through a junkyard and then it spontaneously assembles a 747. And that seems silly, right? We all agree that that's probably not going to happen.
But it would be awesome to see.
Yeah. But Dawkins in The Blind Watchmaker, he does this experiment where he takes a page of Shakespeare and then he writes this computer software that just randomly throws letters at the page, just randomly places letters in different places on the page, random letters in random locations all over the page. And then it compares that to where he wants to go with the page of Shakespeare. And then what it does is it keeps all the stuff that's right and drops all the stuff that's wrong. And then he does it again. And so after several iterations of just randomly throwing letters at the page, you get the completed page of Shakespeare's prose just by randomly throwing letters at the page. But the trick is you keep what works and you throw away what doesn't. And you just do it over and over and over and over and over again. So that's how you get the DNA code, 3 million letters long over, 14 billion years.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, 4 billion years on the planet, it took a long time. It's not like it just, happened. We're talking about billions of years of evolution and natural selection where something chemically works, it's great, and it's able to reproduce. And if something doesn't, it dies.
Yeah. Well, and we may get to that before we run out of time, but there's so much stuff in the world that is no longer with us because it didn't work.
Yeah.
It wasn't successful.
What does Darwin say? Dawkins say there's more ways to be dead than there are to be alive.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot more ways to be dead. Delicious coffee.
Yeah, and the thing with RNA and DNA is that when it copies itself, it's really good at what it does. It's just not infallible.
Yeah. I don't know. I think, again, that's another... I don't know. I'm wondering if these are like less logical fallacies and just being disingenuous and willfully ignorant.
Scientifically illiterate, mostly. I'm not a scientist at all. I was good at science when I was a kid. I loved science class, but I'm not a scientist. I didn't go to school for science. So, but I mean, even I understand this. It's basic
well, shit,
biology.
if you understand it.
Yeah.
How much more time we got?
About 10.
All right, we'll move on to the next one. Their question was, what is natural selection? Which I think is a stupid...
Why is natural selection a principle...
why is natural selection taught as evolution?
Yeah. Because that's the mechanism. That's like saying, driving. Why is placing your gas on the accelerator taught as driving?
Well, they sum it up as okay, sure, natural selection describes the survival of the fittest, but it doesn't explain the arrival of the fittest. And
what?
Yeah, that's their argument in a nutshell. And I think that's a logical fallacy in that it presupposes that there isn't anything beforehand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
there's a million years of speciation that occurs before that fittest is getting its chance in the sun.
Yeah. Here's a good one. I always like this. And I wasn't an evolutionist, but I did go to school for sociology and anthropology. Color vision in humans. Most mammals have fairly poor color vision, if any at all. But there was something about our ancestors who ate fruit, and it helped if you could tell the difference between something that was ripe and something that wasn't. So the difference between red and green. So some of our ancestors that could distinguish even just slightly against red and green were more likely to thrive than those who couldn't. And then once those traits are passed on, like you said, it's an all or nothing game. Once those traits are passed on, people who can distinguish further again are again more likely to thrive. And it goes that way until we get to where we are now, where we have a full spectrum. Indeed, in the animal kingdom, one of the best spectrums of light recognition with regards to everything between, red and blue.
Yeah, and, like we always sort of think that our visual processing is the end all be all. That there's organisms that are out there that perceive light at higher and lower frequencies than we do.
Sure, bees can see ultraviolet light.
Right. So the world looks different to them.
The world looks mighty good to me.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about creationist arguments. The origin of the eye is one of my favorite, and I love when Dawkins sort of shows the evolution of the eye and how it would have worked, because it's happened so many times individually in nature. Being able to perceive the electromagnetic spectrum at some wavelength is helpful in almost all situations.
Yeah, it's funny in these questions. We're probably not going to get through them all, but they never throw out. I guess the idea of irreducible complexity has been so thoroughly smashed and stepped on that they've just abandoned it. Because I didn't see it in here at all.
I think it's
making
in
headway.
there a little bit, like the DNA code originating and stuff like that, and the mutations. You definitely see the hints of it, but like the next one. If we jump to the next one, how did new biochemical pathways, which involve multiple enzymes working together in sequence, originate? This is the argument of the flagellum.
Well, I was thinking about this one in a broader picture. That and there's also, and I think there's, I don't know which logical fallacy this is, but when they think of like all of these biological pathways working together perfectly all the time, that doesn't happen. Mistakes get made all the time. That's why we have sickness and disease. But sometimes it's not always sickness and disease. Sometimes it makes you a little stronger. It only needs to happen once.
Yeah. I mean, look at, God, what diseases we pick would be great. Like,
sickle cell anemia is good.
Sickle cell anemia, one actually. Yeah.
If you have the recessive trait, you are
diabetes.
immune to malaria.
Yeah.
But,
or the really random trait where you're immune to HIV.
Huh?
There's a very small population, and both your parents have to have the trait. It exists in small areas of Eastern Europe where people are actually immune to HIV.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was actually been used to treat a person in Germany who had HIV because he also had leukemia. And but unfortunately, the tactic they used is so dangerous that you wouldn't be able to do it to anyone else. It involves a full bone marrow transplant.
Yeah, but again, that's a that there's an instance where those those chemical pathways and biological processes go a little haywire, but there's some unintended outcome.
Absolutely.
Now imagine that over 4 billion years.
Imagining.
I can't imagine
Okay.
why the Earth would. Most of these all fall into that argument from incredulity. I can't believe that this could be possible. Well, it turns out it
Well,
is.
speaking of incredulity, number 6. Living things look like they were designed, so how do evolutionists know that they were not designed? This is a few things. This is incredulity,
Burden of proof.
and it's the burden of proof, exactly. Like, that's not how things work. You don't prove that something is not something.
I say they were designed. Prove to me that they weren't.
And yeah, exactly. I have a baseball. Prove that I don't. I can fly. Prove that I can't. If you have a positive claim, i.e., an intelligent designer created life, prove it. Get it peer-reviewed. Have it be verifiable. And I'll fucking believe it, man. Like, I am open. If you can show empirically that something is, I'll bite. I'll check it out. But until then, all you have is supposition, and baseless supposition at that.
Yeah, that's one of the things that came out of the Dover trial, where they kicked intelligent design out of the schools, was they asked the guys, well, you say it's a branch of science, like you want it to be treated as science, and they said, well, if you could do one experiment to test a hypothesis of intelligent design, what would it be? And they said nothing. There's nothing they can do.
Yeah. And science, that's the thing. Like, science isn't just guessing about how the world works. Science is a very specialized school of philosophy. It's epistemology requiring logic and empiricism.
Yeah, and making predictions and then testing them.
Yeah, you have to be able to make a prediction and then test it. And it has to be verifiable. And anyone who does the test should come up with the same results.
Yeah, I like in their statement they say, like, the problem for evolutionists is that living things show too much design. God did too good a job.
Damn that.
And if you're gonna follow that logic, like, bullshit, God did a shitty job. Like, you said, think about the eye. Our eyes are like, they work really good for what we use them for, but compared to what they could be, shit. And then if it's such a good design, why is there death and disease?
Yeah. I mean, the too much design, the perfect design argument is such bullshit. Okay, talk about the eye. Our optic nerve comes through our retina and actually gives us a blind spot that our mind has to fill in. How about the xiphoid process, a small piece of bone that if it were to break off would puncture your heart and kill you? How about your appendix? How about wisdom teeth? How about, I don't know, the fact that we can't process dietary cholesterol? How about the fact that any number of things,
Yeah.
it's so awful. Like, it's frustrating because it's something that's said expecting that you're not going to have the expertise to rebut it.
All right, so their seventh question: how did multicellular life originate? Isn't that just reframing the first question or two?
Kind of, I guess. It's assuming singular cell organisms are alive. How did multicellular organisms exist? I don't know. I would assume it's somewhere along the lines that the abiogenesis experts assume, where RNA was originally singular and then began to insert itself within naturally forming like lipid spheres.
All right, number 8. How did sex originate? I don't see what that has to do with how that's a problem for evolution.
That's so they can link it later to how homosexuality is wrong.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the obvious advantage is when sexual procreation, you get a greater shuffling of the genes. It has a better chance of having those random mutations that provide greater fitness. Like when you play a game of cards, like if we're gonna deal cards and play poker, what's better? Do you just cut the deck once, or I shuffle it 7 times?
7 times.
Mm-hmm.
That's a stat. I had a section. Well, I don't know what logical fallacy would this be. Some kind of like not even relevant to the discussion. Like
Yeah.
Hand waving.
Non sequitur.
Yeah.
One that's not infographic, the non sequitur.
All right. So, number 9.
Number 9 is my favorite.
Yeah. Why are the expected countless millions of transitional fossils missing? Again, I want to beat my head against the wall.
Yeah, this is one of those ones that's just dumb.
There are lots of transitional fossils.
Yeah, it's called all of them.
But
life
the thing
is ever changing. My descendants will not be genetically the same as me. They will not be physiologically the same as me. They will not be anatomically the same as me. Period. All fossils are transitional fossils. All forms are transitional forms. Every single.
That's that gap thing again. As soon as you have a once you plug in a gap, you create 2 more.
It's like if I show someone a ruler and I say, look, 1 to 12, it's a foot, and they go, no, where's the half inches? So I go, okay, and I draw in the half inches. I say, there you go. And they go, no, where are the quarter inches? And then so I draw in the quarter inches, and then they say, it just goes on forever. Where are the 1/8 inches? Where are the 16th? Where are the 32nd? And now that I've confused anyone who doesn't live in the United States as units of measure, it's exactly that. They're just moving the goalposts, is what they're saying. When we find, Tiktaalik or, Homo erectus or whatever.
But
Australopithecus afarensis.
This is actually
they want to move the goalposts.
Well, I agree, it's moving the goalposts, but actually, this is now an obsolete argument, because even if you threw away the entire fossil record, now we have the ability to genetically decode every living creature on the planet, and we can display their degrees of relatedness that way. We can show how related we are to other species, even without the fossil record. You could, as a bold, Dawkins makes it in The Blind Watchmaker, and it's a bold claim, but I kind of see how he's coming from that. You could show the genetic relatedness of every living creature on Earth, and there's a project underway to do so. It's just time-consuming, and we're not all the way there yet. But it turns out every time we decode the genetic, the DNA of one creature, we can put it perfectly in that predictive bush of evolution.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about evolution, is that we make the predictions about what we should find, and time again we find them. When I love Tiktaalik, I love it because it's one of those fossils where they say, okay, well, if we originate as fish, then we should be able to find some sort of half fish, half amphibian. And we did exactly where we should have.
Right. Not just where geographically, but where in the timeline, in the geologic timeline. Yep.
When you look at the stratification of geology, it was at that level right where it should have been. And the thing with this argument is that not everything that dies leaves a fossil.
Right.
It requires very, very special circumstances of sedimentation, to leave a fossil.
Well, it's about to get loud in here, and it's time to wrap it up.
Okay.
He's like, I'm tired of listening to you jerkies run off of the mouth.
They're fucking mowing the lawn. That's going to be difficult.
We only got through 9 of these, but I'll link to it in the show notes. It's just an experiment in making you want to smash your face against the wall. recommend
Zombie
for me,
Popcorn and This
Did
Non-Religious
Fish
Life
Die
in no
Before the
way
Fall?
endorses or claims violence against other people because of your beliefs. All views expressed solely are those of kin.
Yeah, it really does. It makes you so frustrated when you read it if you have even like a cursory knowledge of basic argumentation, let alone science.
Oh, I did a couple face palms, man. I was like, oh, man, really? Come on, they're doing that.
Yeah.
But the good thing is they have a magazine that they encourage you to subscribe to and read to your grandkids.
Yeah.
Grandkids. This is what they said.
Yeah. That's awesome.
You can order it
Just
over
gives
the
you an
evil
idea
internet.
of who they're pandering to.
It's good stuff.
So, any closing arguments, guys?
I'm just going to say a little prayer and hope that next week we have as good a juicy items to dissect as we did this week, because it was too good.
Yeah. Yeah, this was definitely a windfall.
Here's the only thing that would be better would be like a Mitt Romney sex scandal, please.
Ken, get on it.
All right. I'll try to frame them for... it would have to be a gay sex scandal, though.
Yes.
Even better.
Yeah. Heterosexual relations are just not as juicy as or condemning in U.S. politics because of that whole Judeo-Christian thing against homosexuality. You know what? The next time a politician gets caught in some sort of like gay sex scandal, they should do what that pastor did. Where was it? It was a few years ago. It was this pastor got caught having sex with some of the young men in his congregation, and he said he was trying to. It was like he was trying to like screw the evil out of them. It was awesome.
Out, you demon, out.
Awesome.
Well, he didn't say he was going to screw the evil out of him. He said that the young boys have this desire, and it's better for him to keep it in the church and to somebody who can have an avenue towards God to get this.
He's
out
taking
of him.
one for the team.
Yeah.
Yeah, take it for the team.
But what
I
we
guess
should
they
do,
would pray while they did it.
Yeah, what we should really do is let's pick 5 politicians and run a gambling ring where people can donate money, and we pick who is going to be the first politician or religious leader that is involved with a sex scandal.
Can I get Rick Santorum?
You can do whatever. And then we put money down on it and invite our listeners to do it, and then whoever wins.
What do I win?
You win the money. You win the pot.
All right.
It should be like a bracket.
Wait,
whoever stays in the longest. All right. With that, I guess I'll wrap it up.
Let's wrap it up.
So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, you want to send us some sort of outrageous message, you think we got something wrong, you think we did something right, you can call us 757-337-2195. You can email us, nonreligious@zombie-popcorn.com. You can like us on Facebook, facebook.com/nonreligiouslife. You can put us in your circles on Google+. You can listen to the show on Stitcher Radio, which comes in some BMWs and Fords now, just stock in the stereo system. You can go to iTunes, download all the shows, check them out. And most of all, you can just go to zombiepopcorn.com. Sign up for the newsletter. It's right at the top of the site. You'll get information about this show, what it's about, all the shows we're doing. Some great giveaways coming up. So go on there, check it out. Leave feedback. Tell us what you think we're doing. And other than that, we will talk to you next time.
Good job, SG.
Good job.
Just got out here.
I thought I was a good Christian.
Jesus died on a cross. I go to church every Sunday. Just got out here. Then I read that Jesus died on a cross for a rotten hooker.
I thought I was a good Christian.
I go to church every Sunday.
I thought I was a good Christian.
I go to church every Sunday. I'm a very religious person.
I thought I was a good Christian.
The very lies, the serpent confusion and promote lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spread confusion and promote lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spread confusion and promote lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spread confusion and promote lies. The gospel.